Shalom. I want to give all praise to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ha, Racha, Kodash, Ma'amath. Double honors to the elder apostles of GMS and their elders. Double honors to my elder, Aharawan, Ban Yasharala of the Lions Den Camp, here in Jacksonville, Florida. Salutations to the sincere Aki and pushing this truth and sincerity around the four corners of this earth. I'm Nakar Harab Ban Yasharala coming out of the Lions Den Camp. Yasharala here in Jacksonville, Florida. Not today. I'll be coming out with a little lamb back off the brother Thanyala because he did a Yapah lesson about Russia getting geared up and basically making declarations of war and how these other countries are eventually going to turn or side with the bear, i.e. Russia, and come against America. But without further ado,
Russia has for weeks been massing troops and tanks along the Ukrainian border, prompting Ukraine, Poland and Lithuania to call for more Western sanctions against it in fear of an invasion. A joint statement by the countries today accused Russia of continuing aggression and urged NATO to act. Russia has denied preparing for an invasion and has accused the West of threatening Russia through NATO expansion. Our Moscow correspondent Steve Rosenberg has been investigating just what President Putin might be planning.
In Russia, too, it is the season of goodwill. But peace on earth is in short supply. Russian armor is massing near the border with Ukraine. At the same time, Moscow is demanding an end to NATO enlargement and NATO military activity in Eastern Europe. What is Russia signaling? I asked the Deputy Foreign Minister, has Moscow decided to reverse the results of the Cold War?
We're
not re-examining the results of the Cold War. We're reassessing the expansion the West has carried out in recent years against Russian interests with hostile intent. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
State TV has been echoing Vladimir Putin's claim that NATO activity close to Russia threatens Russia's security. And Moscow has this warning.
If Ukraine joins NATO, or if NATO develops military infrastructure there, we will hold a gun to America's head. Russia has the world's best weapons, hypersonic. You'd get the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again, but with a shorter flight time for missiles. We propose trying to avoid this situation. Otherwise, everyone will be turned into radioactive ash.
Critics of the Kremlin say this isn't about genuine security threats. It's about Moscow trying to restore a sphere of influence.
We don't know what the Kremlin is planning, but what is clear from what President Putin has been saying is that 30 years after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia's leader remains deeply resentful of how the Cold War ended, with Russia losing territory, influence, and empire. And
so there you go. Russia trying to go back to that USSR. What does it say? Roughly paraphrasing, the Lord said he will put hooks in their jaws and turn them back to that same spirit that they had once before during the Cold War. And you got to think, Russia, they still bitter. They still how you say, tight about what happened during the Cold War. But as you can see, Russia is one of those countries that's coming up against America. That's gonna come up against America because it's prophesied to happen. But without further ado, this is Habakkuk chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 6. It says, shall not these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So shall not these take up a parable? Shall not these other countries take up a parable against what? America. You know what I'm saying? Esau. No, this taunting proverb. You know, what Russia said. We have hypersonic missiles. We got the best missiles. You know, it'll be what? The Cuban missile crisis all over again, with one exception, a shorter flight time for missiles to hit their target. And this is a taunting proverb. Esau over there trying to set up on Russia's, well, he's setting up over there on Russia's border in the Ukraine, all that is Russia territory. And Russia is like, again, Russia is tight and is tired of Esau or America acting like they're protecting when they're really there to harm and enslave and to take over. So these other countries that are against America have taken up this taunting proverb. They're getting their missiles ready. They're getting their arsenal ready. Russia is preparing for war. And it says, woe to him that increaseth. You know, in Esau, he stayed increasing in wickedness. He stayed lading himself with thick clay, with debt, with money. He stayed increasing himself with things that are not his. He over there in the Ukraine and in Crimea and all them other places, you know. The Lord finna judge. The Lord finna take Esau down, man. But again, I'm going to read this verse one more time. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 6. It says, shall not these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his. And Esau is always increasing in things that are not his. How long? Meaning, how long is this going to go on? How long is he going to continue this? It says, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And Esau stay with the thick clay, that debt. Stay running up a bill. Let's continue. It says, shall they not suddenly, Salakia, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee? Thou shalt be for booties unto them. So shall not these other nations suddenly rise up and think to harm this place, think to destroy Esau's power structure, or i.e. Babylon in this system that's here? Shall not those that awake to the foolishness, to the BS that Esau has been doing around the four corners of the earth, shall not that vex these other nations? It is. Korea don't like America. China don't like America. Russia don't like America. And Germany got a new prime minister. There ain't no telling how he getting down. So a lot of these places don't like America. So these countries are taking up that proverb, that taunting proverb. They're getting their arsenal ready. They're preparing for battle. The Lord is putting it in these heathens' heart to go to war, which is ultimately going to be that third world war, the third woe, the battle of Armageddon. But let's continue. Verse 8, it says, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. So because Esau has spoiled many nations, the remnant of these nations, the people of these nations are going to come and spoil America. You know, Esau has spilled men's blood quite frequently in the earth, especially Jake. But now it's these other nations that's tight by what Esau done did around the four corners of the earth. You know, and the violence of the land the violence that's going on right here in the land and around the four corners of the earth that Esau drums up. And of the city and of all that dwell therein. So it's finna be a for real bloodbath. These other nations is gearing up. They're getting ready. Let me see. All right. So yeah, that was just a quick lesson just to land back off the brother Athanyala of this camp. You know, these nations is getting ready. And what Russia just said, low key, those are words of war. Shalom.